Well, Josh, we have Elon Musk on the show. Elon, how are you?
Dude, I knew you were going to rip that off. I knew it. So just so that way I have full awareness of what's going on right now. Like, I just made the joke that Alex he looks like Elon Musk. He even has the same tone of voice, the same affect. It's basically Elon Musk's brother, or potentially Elon Musk we have on right now. Dan just ripped it out out from my mouth.
I literally picked it straight out of Josh's mouth, put it in mine, and chewed it. But introduce yourself though, Alex, so people can see that you're Elon's better half here. At least audibly.
My name is Alex. I'm a founder of Heatbit. These two people say I sound like Elon Musk. I don't know.
Is that a really just like low American? Is that just a pathetic American thing to say? Like, do we just sound exactly the same to you? Like, or what's?
No. I think in America, there's so many different accents in America. You go to a different city, there's a different accent. There's people speak so differently.
Yeah.
And plus there's a lot of people with a different language as their native language. And that has implications for how they speak as well, right? So someone from Hispanic background might sound completely different from someone who is, with Hindi background as their mother tongue, right?
Yeah.
So Americans all sound very, very different.
Yeah, and then you've got everything from Boston to Texas and California. We've got at least like 4 or 5 different regions in the U.S. where people have completely different dialects, it seems,
and cultures.
But we don't sound as smart as the British.
Cultures. Yeah. Wait, did we just, as a start off, did we just insult you or compliment you? And Elon Musk is a very polarizing figure. How did you take that?
True.
Do you like it? Do you not? What's your?
I just take it as the fact,
Yeah.
As
we just called you the richest man.
Like Elon Musk. That's about it.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it makes funding a lot easier when you're Elon Musk. At least you just buy Twitter for twice what it's worth, and then and then you throw away one of the greatest symbols I feel like that a company's come up with, like the Twitter logo, everything about Twitter's brand is great, and then you just change it to
it's just
X.
gone. I feel like I'm still going through the grieving process.
I don't like it at all, man.
I kind of like that he's making some bold moves, right? You're gonna give it to him, right? It's risky.
That's all he does is bold moves.
He knows that some people are not going to be happy with it, but that's what a leader does, and I think he's a great leader. I think we can give him that as well. Whether we agree with what he says or what he does, or what he's doing with Twitter.
Well, I mean, the proof is in the guy. Literally, I think it was PayPal, right? In the early 2000s, he got $100 million from the payout, took all of that money, doubled down on it, and started 2 companies that people would be like, "You're completely insane! Like, you want to start a rocket company and an electric car company? You're going to fail and you're going to lose all your money." And he rode couches for like 5 years as a millionaire just because he rolled it all in. And he was successful. So you can't really argue with the fact that the guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah. That's actually a topic, Alex, we want to get into at some point here today. Is just a broader conversation. Maybe we'll round into it at the end about starting something like you're doing. I think ponying up, raising the money, putting up the capital, taking the risk, ideating.
Yeah.
Going out on the free market and taking a chance is something that so few people fully understand, and almost everybody takes for granted.
Why don't we start there? Why don't you tell us about the story of just being an entrepreneur, starting this company, and then I'm sure that dovetails with Bitcoin along the way. So, why don't you tell us your origin story for Heatbit, how this all came about?
Well, the story of Heatbit started in early 2020. I lived in China at the time, and the COVID was just starting. We were already under lockdown. It was getting very boring, and I bought myself a Bitcoin miner, Antminer S9K, as a toy. It wasn't for any kind of serious mining with residential prices. Unless you steal that electricity, you can't really make money. So it was really a toy, something to play with, something you potentially break. And I did break it later on. I turned it on in my bedroom, and it got really loud, and then it got really hot. And I thought, well, it could be a great heater. And I do have a bit of a background in energy. my first job was in consulting, and I worked for about 2 years consulting different energy companies. So with some understanding of how the electric power systems work, how the energy is being distributed, so I thought, well, this is actually great. The same energy is being used for two different purposes at the same time, bringing efficiency to the whole system overall. So at that very, very high level, you think, well, when you bringing so much efficiency to a process which was becoming bigger and bigger, and Bitcoin mining is getting really big in terms of its effect on the world, then there's going to be something in it. And yeah, that's how we started. Then there was hundreds different iterations on different models. There was completely different design concepts of the product. The product that you've seen as our first product, that was kind of a proof of concept that we actually delivered to the market, Heatbit 1, this tall tower. Yep. That was not the first concept that we worked on. The first concept was this huge rectangular, it was actually a tank, rectangular tank that you would hang on the wall, like the wall hang heaters. Mm-hmm. That would have liquid cooling in it, and cooling the boards, maybe S9 boards, and dissipating all the heat into the atmosphere. We wanted to make it completely fanless, so zero noise, but realized that there was just so much heat that it would not dissipate into the room fast enough. So yeah, unfortunately it didn't work relying just on convection. So yeah, we changed the concept to what became Heatbit 1, this tall tower that I'm sure you've seen in the videos, or maybe on our earlier version of the website. And yeah, that's really how it started.
Wow. When did it go for you, Alex, from, okay, this is a kind of cool idea, to this could actually be a business, a workable business? What was that evolution like?
With the first sales. So, and I think that's, we talked a little bit about, how you start a business, and I think getting to sales when someone is actually paying money for something that you do, that's one of the biggest indicators of something that might work. Yeah, it might still not work. So many mistakes that you can make. But if the most startups, especially, not just companies, but startups, where you do something innovative, something new, you don't know if people are going to pay for it. You don't know if it's actually needed. A lot of people are solving problems that are made up, and they only find out after building the product. And so for me, it got serious, and I realized that, well, yeah, there's something that's going to work when we sold the first few units. And we actually pre-sold those. When I mentioned that huge tank, we actually sold 2 of those. It was a pre-sale on the website. We thought, let's just put it up on the website. We didn't have the product yet. We had the concept. We knew that this is what it's going to look like. Roughly, this is what the cost is going to be. So we put the price on it. And then there were 2 people who bought it. One is in Canada. The other one, I'm not sure. I don't remember where he is. He may be in the US, maybe in France. It was a gentleman with a French sounding name. And yeah, when they bought it, we thought, well, even though it's just the concept, there's no product reviews, there's nothing online, people are still paying for it. So it must be needed. And then we didn't deliver that product later on, so we just refunded the money. It moved on from there.
Yeah, what we're doing is obviously very different, but I remember back in the day, Dan, when we had our first couple episodes, and the last time I looked, I think maybe the first couple had like 80 downloads. But back when they first originated, they were probably like 30. And that was just like guys at the firehouse and probably some of our family listening to this, like, what clown project are these two working on? And then seeing, that growth happen, it's such a cool experience to actually see that, 2 years later or however long it takes. And it usually takes quite a long period of time for this entrepreneurial journey to to really get kickstarted. No one ever just, I mean, there are a few exceptions to that rule, but very few people are lucky enough to like create a product or create something and people are just immediately enthralled by it and just jump on it. It's like winning the lottery in a way. And it also probably isn't a good thing for a lot of people because you're not really sure what you did right, what you did wrong. You didn't have the time to kind of curtail your product to what it is the market wants. So along those lines, what is different about the new Heatbit Mini versus the tower design you guys had a few years ago? What makes it different? And tell us about that versus the original. Or I know it's not the original, but one of the final one that you first started selling.
So the first one that we started selling was the Heatbit 1, this tower design.
Right.
And now we have Heatbit Mini in pre-orders, and that's coming up in, I think in October, we're going to be able to start shipping it. It's actually coming up quite well. So how are they different? The Heatbit 1 was a lot more like a proof of concept, right? It's the first product that we actually delivered, but inside it had a second-hand Antminer and S9, and we actually got criticized for it, right? By a lot of people who do mining themselves. That'd be like, well, it's just an S9 that looks nice. That wasn't quite the case. I wouldn't quite agree with that critique, but it had certain angle to it, right?
Yeah.
And
what do they expect you guys to do? Build your own miner from scratch? Like, it makes sense that you would leverage what is already existing technology. You're not going to just redesign the miner.
At least to start with. We never raised any money. We funded and still funding the company ourselves. And developing the circuit boards for the miner, that's kind of expensive. So to start with, you try to build something and to really deliver it to one, to really test the market, and two, to prove to the market that you can actually build something. So that was the purpose of the first product. And we put the secondhand miner inside. All the other components were new. It's just the miner that was secondhand. But I think we really excelled with making it quiet. A lot of people were surprised with how quiet it is when they actually received it. And there were a lot of things around the safety aspect of the device versus just using the miner as a heater directly. That was the first product. We sold about $1 million USD worth of those. Had a lot of problems with them. A lot of things went wrong, especially things around the miner, both hardware and software related. Because if there's some hardware that you didn't design, you don't fully control the condition and the specs of it. At scale, you're gonna start getting problems, and that's what we've hit. Even though it was 1,000 devices, we already hit quite a few problems with those. But it was okay. The way that I saw it is, well, we should, if there are problems and someone has it broken, we should just make sure that we either refund the money or replace it. As long as we can do it, it's fine, right? Of course, there's quite a bit of annoyance for the customer. You get something and it doesn't work, you have to replace. But at the end, that's kind of the pain that we have to go through as the company and our customers. A lot of them, unfortunately, had to go through the same as well with us. But that's just part of the journey. Now, coming to Heatbit Mini, this is not the proof of concept anymore. This is the properly designed high-end product. We did design the custom miner for it, so straight from the chips. The only thing that we're buying there is the chips. It's the 5 nanometer tech chips, really the latest stuff in the mining tech. Really efficient. So there's 33 mining chips in every Heatbit Mini. And that is about 20 billion transistors. It's a similar amount of transistors to like a MacBook, for example. It's really the latest. I know I keep talking about this everywhere, but I guess I can say I'm a little proud of this.
That's cool though. That was a question I was going to ask you guys, if you had designed the mining chip for the new Heatbit, which is sounds like you guys have. That is really cool. And it's also, I think that's really telling that you got the ability to acknowledge that you had some issues with the first product. And that's, I mean, a lot of people would just ignore or pretend there weren't issues. I think it's really stand up to say, yeah, we had some issues and then it was related to, you know, the S9s that were in there or however have you. But now the fact that you guys are designing this thing from the ground up yourselves, you have full control over not only the software, but the hardware of it. I think, I mean, it sounds like you're going to have a lot fewer issues, if any at all, because you've got full control over the whole stack.
Just to be clear, we didn't design the chips themselves. The chips we buy from one of the major manufacturers of mining equipment, but the miner, the circuit board, and everything around it, we design.
Gotcha.
And about the problems, the biggest source of the problems was the S9, and the second one was some of the software-related issues we had was to do with the size of the team. We had one back-end developer that got sick for a month in December, like really when the season hit. And we started shipping the product, he got sick, and he wasn't there for like a month. So yeah, that really didn't help. Obviously, you know, it's not something I can just, you know, say to our customers at the time, like, oh, it's not working, but the guy is sick, so, you know, we're not going to do anything about it. Our CTO was not sleeping the nights and trying to fix it, but the guy was really overwhelmed. Now we have like 5 times the size of the team, so I think now we're a lot better equipped for any problems that are going to come our way.
Howdy, plebs. It is Dan here. I want to take a minute to talk to you about Crowd Health. What Crowd Health is doing in the healthcare space is nothing short of remarkable. If you're already familiar with Crowd Health, you can visit joincrowdhealth.com/BCB and use code BLUE for a tantalizing 3-month trial discount. As you probably know by now, the two of us are career firefighter paramedics. Nearly 70% of our calls are medical related, and we both rotate over to an ambulance. We're the first link in the chain in the healthcare system, and we see just how broken it is. Injured and sick patients stressed out of their mind, primarily worried about the incoming hospital bill. Crowd Health offers an extremely simplistic and workable alternative to traditional healthcare setups for a freaking fraction of typical premiums. It's essentially the decentralization of healthcare, leveraging the power of Bitcoin alongside healthcare crowdfunding to drastically uncomplicate healthcare and give back control to patients. Crowd Health negotiates bills for their members and finds them the best doctors and hospitals. Do yourself a favor. Visit joincrowdhealth.com/BCB. That's joincrowdhealth.com/BCB. And use code BLUE during sign up to receive a max discount crowdfunding request of $49 a month. Yes, $49 for the first 3 months. The Blue Collar Bitcoin podcast is brought to you by arguably the most legendary company in Bitcoin, CoinKite. They are the producers of the renowned Cold Card, the world's most trusted and secure Bitcoin signing device, built with a plethora of features fit for Bitcoin beginners all the way up to the most advanced of users. This device is a one-stop shop for your Bitcoin custody needs, and something the two of us have trusted for years. CoinKite also manufactures the Block Lock, a gorgeous e-ink digital display art piece sitting in the background of what seems to be every serious Bitcoiner on the planet. Block Lock can be programmed to scroll through key Bitcoin metrics, including price, hash rate, next halving date, and much more. Boy, oh boy, will this thing look good in your living room or office. They're also the makers of many other security and fun products for all users, no matter their technical aptitude. Support our show and get a delicious discount on CoinKite products by following our affiliate link on the screen and in the notes, and using code BCB for 5% off the Cold Card. For sure. So to zoom out, okay, and we'll get back into the product in specific, but I think the really fascinating angle here is how much of a pioneer product this is. There has been a lot of talk about pairing mining with auxiliary applications, and that has happened moderately at industrial scale. But we are talking about bringing this same application, this same mining unlock, these better economics in-home. Let's talk a little bit about that idea overall and a potential progression of Bitcoin mining and a move of mining, I would phrase it, towards the individual. potentially away from industrial scale towards the individual because of the ability to do numerous things in home in a smart home configuration that mine Bitcoin with energy you're using already. Start however you want there, and we can riff on that, because this isn't just cool. It's a very powerful idea that could significantly impact the Bitcoin network in decades to come, in my view.
Yeah, there's the energy implications. And then there's decentralization implications as well to it, which are also quite important, I think. That's kind of how Satoshi designed it and meant it. But I'm sure he didn't mean to have this huge mining plants with thousands of devices all in one place. I don't think that was the idea. But anyway, yeah, when you think of moving mining into homes, well, that's how it started. That's how originally, people were mining, each, having a few miners, and then it grew in size. And then you have something like the economies of scale. So the more miners you put together, the better economics you can get out of it. Then it got more and more competitive. Then in most countries, you have cheaper industrial electric power rates than the residential rates. So yeah, people started putting together really big chunks to get the industrial rates instead of the residential rates that we pay at home. And yeah, then it just grew in size. Then you've got all the huge mining companies. They went public, so they could raise the money from the financial markets to reinvest and buy more machines and grow in scale with the economies of scale. And that's the fact. That's kind of how the industry went. And I think rightly the industry got criticized for a lot of the energy consumption, right? So there's a lot of energy is consumed by mining, and so you use that energy, and then it supports the Bitcoin network, which is important. So that's the justification for the use of that energy. But then you kind of force the world to choose that, you either use a lot of energy or you support the Bitcoin network, right? It's not a very pleasant choice. Now, there's another way, and that's what we do with our devices and with more of the industrial devices that you mentioned. When you use the mining to create the excess heat that you also use. So in our case, essentially you have, let's put it this way. How does a usual electric heater work? It takes a 1 unit of energy in the form of electric power and turns it into 1 unit of energy, the same amount of energy, in the form of heat. That's what a regular coil electric heater does. There's very basic physics to it. Now, when it comes to mining, if you do it through a miner, same thing. It takes 1 unit of energy and creates one in the form of electric power, and then creates 1 unit of energy in the form of heat. It's the same energy conversion. It's just that it's done not through the metal coil, but through the silicon chips that also perform the calculations, which is kind of like a side effect here, right? If you think of it as a heater. So at the end, you're doing 2 things with the same energy at the same time, which is just a lot smarter way of doing it. And this way, so if you think of it, let's say, take an example of a consumer who's using electric heating at home. They already use their energy. They need to keep warm, right? They have to use the energy. They already use it. And around the world, there's a huge consumption of energy just for electric heating. It's over 600 terawatt hours. So this is like twice the power consumption of the UK, just to put it into perspective. And Bitcoin mining is like 150, like a quarter of that total Bitcoin mining. Now, this guy is already using the energy to create heat. So now if you say, well, why don't you not use a usual electric heater, but use a Bitcoin miner to do that, then the guy is using the same amount of energy, gets the same amount of heat, but also gets a reward from for the computations that his system is doing, right? So here it's mining, but it could be any other computation as well. So and this way, mining doesn't consume any extra energy. There's been a defense of the centralized mining industry put together in the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, that, oh yeah, it does use a lot of energy, but very big share of the energy is renewable. There's a certain truth to that. At the same time, if that renewable energy didn't go into the centralized mining, it would actually go into the grid, pushing out all the not so clean energy, right? So, and this is where the argument kind of breaks. But if you don't use any extra energy for the mining, in my example with a guy using a heater, then it all starts to make sense.
Yeah. Like the way I think about it is that, and I think what's so powerful here, and where the various incentives and facets of Bitcoin align across so many different fronts, is not only is this make sense from an energy standpoint, but it also is just better economics. Like on the furthest end of cheap, when you think in-home energy, on the furthest end of cheap is energy that you're already using. So if you can find a way to take those energy costs that exist, your electrical bill is $100 a month, and you can somehow keep your electric bill $100 a month and mine Bitcoin, which is basically the mission statement of this product in your company, why the fuck wouldn't you do it? It's literally quite literally free money. And it's zero waste. So now you bring in the whole energy component. If someone is environmentally concerned, it literally is zero waste across the board.
And it's also contributing to the decentralization of the network, which is another, I mean, we talked about that, touched on it a bit, but it's not necessarily a good thing that we have these massive cohorts of miners that are all centralized and all can control and point that hash rate in a certain, especially as, you know, politics kind of intermingles its way into Bitcoin as it becomes larger. There can be state actors that can ask these miners to not necessarily approve a certain transaction, or, you know, any of these kinds of issues that can come up. So having a further decentralized base that is not only not wasting energy, is using it efficiently. I wanted to ask you about this. I did some napkin math. It seems that most residential, like natural gas heaters like we use in the US, I'm not really that familiar with what they're using in other places, but it's about 100,000 BTUs. An S19, from what I can gather, produces about 11,000 BTUs. So 9 or 10 S19s would potentially heat my house to the same degree that this heater that I use for my central heating in my house does. I mean, at the prices they're at now, it seems like it could be reasonable. Like they're about $1,000 each. But 2 years ago, S19s were $12,000 each. So obviously way outside of the purview of reasonable. Do you think that is a possibility in the future, that we could actually be central heating in a house could be done with Bitcoin mining? Or is that just, does it scale up well to that?
It's a good question, and I'm interested in your take, because what I'm starting to envision, especially hearing you ideate, and you were sharing some new ideas before we click record. Water heating. You mentioned cooling, heating. If the product is created, it will be used. Back to the better economics. Like even if you're not a Bitcoiner, who doesn't want to accumulate any sort of asset that while doing the same things they're doing already? Like I think I heard you say before, like we're talking about orange pilling through heating, orange pilling through smart home applications. It's like a totally different route to come at this. And it's the ultimate manifestation of, if you build it, they will come. If you say to your neighbor, dude, I just put in this air conditioner, this is how much it costs, and the thing spits off X amount of revenue per month, they're going to fucking buy the thing, or at least be interested. Go ahead with just that great question Josh just introduced there. Folks, we're going to take a moment here to announce our newest partner here at Blue Collar Bitcoin, and that is Heatbit. Josh and myself, Dan, found this product at Bitcoin 2023, and it immediately stood out to the two of us. Heatbit makes a badass 3-in-1 device. It's a Bitcoin miner, a heater, and an air purifier all in one. This puppy uses the same amount of energy as any regular heater and it generates $20 to $25 worth of Bitcoin every month you use it. It's incredibly aesthetically pleasing. Dare we say sexy. It uses cutting-edge tech with 5-nanometer mining chips, and it's compact and quiet. To top it off, the price point is beyond accessible, starting at just $299. Earn passive income in Bitcoin while heating and purifying your home and control the entire thing from a sleek and easy-to-use app. Go to heatbit.com, that's heatbit.com, and start hashing at home.
Yeah, of course, why not? So in your example, you're talking about, I speak about the very small scale, very residential kind of one heater per room kind of environment, and you're talking about more of the whole house with possibly several flats kind of environment, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there are solutions like that as well. It's just that's not what we do, but there are companies that essentially take a bunch of miners like S9, S19, whatever other miners that they use, put it together in a tank. Most often they use some sort of liquid cooling for it, and put it at the basement of the building to replace an electric heater or a gas furnace or whatever they've got, and heat the whole building. There are companies that do that. If you Google it, there are plenty around the world. In the US, I've seen one of the mining manufacturers in China is doing that. Actually, I've seen them in Bitcoin Miami in May this year. So people do that, and I think it works just great. It's just it's a different segment from what we do, but I think it works just fine.
Do you envision yourself expanding to more in-home applications? Because I think one of the hurdles, which I also think is worth exploring, is a setup like you just described is unbelievably expensive and has a lot that needs to be added to your, let's say, your home setup to make that possible. Even home mining in and of itself, and we can get into these, but like the list of frictions that present themselves: huge increased electrical load, amperage. You got a ton of heat being generated, fire hazards galore, especially from our angle. You've got maintenance of ASICs. You've got home security concerns. You got these really expensive miners, tons of noise. It takes up a bunch of space. Insurance considerations. What if your house catches on fire because you got this mining setup? Technical complexities. You add all that stuff together. Hat tip. Kudos to those folks that are doing that. But for somebody to implement that at home, that might be one of the fringe amazing things you see on Twitter. Yeah. But for that to be implemented by the average Joe with 3 children, fuck no. We're not even close.
I think
so. That's where I think
through the last part you mentioned, the technical part, that is a huge hurdle for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people have trouble running Bitcoin nodes. This is a bit more complicated than that. And you have to make sure it's running, because if your Bitcoin node doesn't run, it's not a big deal. You fire it up whenever you need to do a transaction or something. But this thing, if it's not running, you have a huge sunk cost here, and it's not making you any money. So, you really need that. You need to make sure you know what you're doing, especially
from
on
our
these bigger, more
point,
elaborate setups.
From our vantage point, and I'm sure you'll resonate, this is what's innovative about what you're building. This is a plug-and-play device. This is a UL-certified plug-and-play device that anyone can use in their house. It's very, very different. And once again, hat tip to anyone home mining. It's cool as fuck. It's just not workable for the average person that doesn't have 40 hours and a bunch of cash laying around to set this stuff up. So to kind of parlay this back into a question, you're pioneering simple, usable products with app interfaces that can be plugged into residential homes. Do you intend to continue to branch that off into other products that could subsume more of the home, kind of like Josh is suggesting?
Yeah, definitely. So one is, there are some obvious ones that also relate to heating, like water heating, right? These are kind of obvious. In our ideation sessions, there was an idea, which is, we're not doing that yet, is, how in some parts of Asia, the warm toilet seats are very popular.
I bet they'd be popular here if we had them. Yeah.
They're very popular in Japan. Sometimes you see them in China, but we're not doing that yet, though. The big one that we started working on not long ago is cooling. So at first, when we thought of cooling, we thought, well, that's kind of counterintuitive. Mining, computing creates heat, how can you combine it with cooling? You could put the miner into an existing AC, and then the AC would cool the miner, so you could mine, and then you would use the AC as well. But it's the two processes go against each other this way, so there's no efficiency created. It's kind of wasteful. But then we actually came up with a slightly different method, patented it, of course, that you use the small miner and the heat to start a process which is similar to a heat pump process. It's using salt and water instead of using compressed air like in a normal AC. But in the end, it's just like any AC is basically a heat pump. Here, it's a heat pump which is started by a small heat source. That miner is that small heat source. So you can actually start getting the cooling, which is driven by mining. And in this case, the processes don't go against each other. It's one process that supports different parts of it.
Very cool. I want to go back. I have to drop this joke in here. It's just bad timing for it, but it's got to happen. The heated toilet seats, we have those at the firehouse. We have a guy named Dennis who spends about an hour every morning on a specific toilet. You just have to wait for him to get off, and then your toilet seat is ready to roll. It's nice and warm.
The only problem is the only problem is when you walk in there, you're gagging.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but it's what we have.
Dude, Alex, the fire
Bitcoin, does he?
No,
no,
the firehouse Josh
he
and I,
he probably could.
Yeah, the firehouse Josh and I work at is seen a lot of love. It's been around for a lot of years. There's not good ventilation in the bathroom, which is inconvenient, Josh, when you're trying to brush your teeth and Dennis is in there taking a shit.
Yeah. Hey, before we move off the toilet humor here, we had a guy. This is a real story. This actually happened, as unbelievable as it is. So yeah, we have some toilets, some like more industrial style toilets, like the heavy duty ones that just connect back to the back wall. And so this thing is bolted to the wall, probably to some 2x4s in the wall. This guy was so big, he sat down on this toilet and snapped the porcelain off the wall and fell to the floor while mid shit and started screaming for help. This actually happened.
Help!
He's lucky he didn't get any lacerations from the toilet coming off the wall like that. But
yeah, real story. Happened.
Being a firefighter is a dangerous job.
It sure is.
In more ways that we can think.
You got to be careful. Those toilets.
The food will get you. When you built this thing, Alex, walk us through kind of some of the efficiencies you built into it, because there are multiple angles, multiple cats you're trying to skin. You're doing the purifying, the heating, and the mining, and you've built a lot of efficiencies into this. Talk to us about the engineering and balancing those three facets as you constructed this thing.
There's two big ones. So one is we're actually using the very efficient chips. So they give a lot more mining per unit of energy than, let's say, S9s. So that's kind of the base of it. The second part was we thought, well, let's actually start with a problem. We saw as a lot of air goes through the chips to cool them down, there's dirt, right? It gets stuck on the chips or on the radiators. It decreases the airflow, and everything starts to go down from there. So we thought, well, we're going to need to tackle that problem. So we introduced an air filter. But then we realized that it basically becomes an air filter if we have an air filter inside, as basic as it sounds. So we thought, well, why don't we just make it, we actually add the functionality of an air filter. So, creating the functionality on the app, etc. So people could use it as an air filter in summer. So that was the other part. And then the third part, we realized that your usual heater would be about 1.3 kilowatts of power. So we thought that if we do all of that with chips, there's an inherent inefficiency to it, because the chips are expensive, and the doing 1.3 kilowatts of chip, the chips, the price of the device would be way over $2,000. And it's kind of expensive for a heater. So we thought, well, what can we do about it? Also, that if we do everything with the chips, you wouldn't use all of that the whole time. So let's say September, October, when it's not that cold, you don't want to use your heater at full power. So
Right.
you pay for the chips that you don't use half the time. So we thought, well, let's minimize it, and we added only 300 watts worth of the chips. So that gives you kind of the base load. And we added a regular heater on top, a regular metal coil of 1 kilowatt. So what that does then is when you just start using the heater and you use very little heat, like 300 watts or so, you already get the whole mining out of it, the 100% of mining. But then on a cold day, you just turn on essentially the regular heater inside Heatbit Mini, and then you're covered. These are the kind of efficiency that were built in as design of the device.
I think that component, and I heard you say that on a previous show, that's the key. And it's a little counterintuitive for someone that's really only interested in the Bitcoin angle. But what I think is so scalable and workable about the solution is you are building for a good heater and air purifier almost first with a miner in it. And that's the only way people are going to, back to this like orange pilling through the smart home. If you say, hey, there's this insanely expensive device that mines quite a bit of Bitcoin, and it also does, a little bit of heating. That's the total sidebar. I think that's much less powerful than saying, this is a good heater. This is a heater that could heat a studio, and it also mines Bitcoin. That's back to what we're saying of that sort of net zero, that using energy, you have to have a good application, a good auxiliary application for this thing to be scalable. And I think that's what's powerful, because the other stuff, it's been inverse to that, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, actually, if we talk about orange pilling, I'm pretty sure there are a lot more people with electric heaters at home than people with a miner. We give people an electric heater, and we try to bring down the price. We even introduced the prices of about $300. This is where we share the mining half with the user. We basically sell it at manufacturing cost. That's how much it costs to manufacture. And it kind of makes it a lot more convenient for the user that, they just, a good heater and purifier is going to cost about that. So we're kind of trying to fill that niche already.
Yeah.
So let's see what the volumes are like. But there are a lot of people with heaters at home, and this is where we are kind of orange pilling a very big community.
Can you talk a little more detail about how that ownership sharing works? So if you pay, let me look at your site. It was $399 for the shared income version, and then the full ownership, you've got it on $549 right now. So it's correct that it's 50%. You get to keep 50% of the mining rewards from the $300 unit. If you pay $550, you get full access to all the mined Bitcoin from that unit.
The user gets, not us as the company,
right.
But the user.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Sorry if I mischaracterized that.
That'd be quite the business model. Hey, pay more, we'll take more.
Pay more, and I take it all. Do you have an option to different mining pools, or do you guys have one specific pool that you guys put Heatbits in to keep the technical side of things down for people? And will there be other options?
Right now, it's NiceHash. And the reason we picked NiceHash was they basically have one of the best APIs to manage all the accounts and the earnings and balances, etc. So that enabled us to build in a pretty good experience into the mobile app.
Gotcha.
And later on, but we're not married to NiceHash, and it's not that we have to use NiceHash always. It's just that they do have a good API, and it was good experience.
I actually used NiceHash for about a year and a half. I have a gaming computer that I wasn't really using for anything. Just got it on NiceHash. You can basically choose if you have GPUs, just mine whatever's most profitable and transfer it into Bitcoin and send it to me. So I had this computer mining shitcoins for like a year and a half, and it paid for itself, I think, twice by the time it was all over with in Bitcoin, which is pretty sweet. And NiceHash worked great the whole time. It's the only mining I've had any experience with. So I'm happy with them.
But we're not It's not that for some reason we are completely stuck or Heatbit's completely stuck with NiceHash. Not at all. It's
Right.
just that we didn't build in other pools yet, but we will. We do plan to do that. That's the choice that should be given to the users. That being said, there's for the mining community, someone who's mining already, they expect that choice, and this is where they kind of ask us, "Hey guys, why you still don't
Right.
have it?" Whereas if we talk about the more general audience, for people who just buy a heater and then there's some cashback, and at first maybe
Right.
they don't even understand where that cashback comes from or what Bitcoin mining is, they're very far from choosing the mining pool. So what we need to give them is convenience, so that it's easy to start and they can already start using and actually mining Bitcoin, even if they don't understand what it is, or even if they don't know what the mining pool is or how to choose it. And then
Right.
these things will come. It's just that they will come a bit later. You shouldn't start with that. That's
For
what I
sure.
think.
Yeah, I'd imagine your target audience is not the ones who've already had miners in their house, and you guys are oriented towards the retail people who maybe have an interest in Bitcoin and they need a space heater. Like, it's a perfect combination there. The people that are in brain pool or whatever, or brains, they're not the ones that are jumping on board with this right off the bat, because they probably already
Yeah.
have an entire room full of S19s running.
Or and I would kind of put us in this category, maybe you even more so definitely more so than me, Josh, but somebody that would theoretically like the idea of standing up a home mining setup, but is keenly aware of the frictions and challenges that exist, right? You're already running a Bitcoin node. I've thought for a long time, man, I wish I could hash on the network, but it's just not workable in the place that I live, at the context I'm in life. And I'm not saying that this is the same as somebody having 6 ASICs in the backyard, but it is a way to contribute, to participate.
Start9 operating system is a full-fledged, cutting-edge Linux operating system. Its functionality and adaptability make it an excellent choice for the users who value simplicity, efficiency, and privacy. Running a Bitcoin node? Start9 is your go-to solution. Setting up a node has never been so easy. With a Start9 server, backups are more than just an afterthought. At the push of a button, create encrypted backups, ensuring your data stays safe and sound, out of the reach of big tech companies. Start9's commitment to security goes even further. StartOS is encrypted for all LAN communications. This ensures your passwords and assets are always protected. The StartOS marketplace of apps includes everything from Lightning to secure messaging apps to secure password management. If you care to be sovereign in the digital age, running a StartOS server is a must. And the best part? You can download and set up StartOS on any machine, or you can purchase a plug-and-play Start9 server directly from Start9. Choose Start9 for a secure, streamlined, and flexible computing experience. When Dan and I are at the firehouse and we have finally delivered the orange pill to a new plebe, we recommend Swan for their first Bitcoin purchase, always. Swan has the user interface absolutely nailed. We have seen people go from no-coiners to Bitcoiners in under a minute. It's just that easy. The problem with sending friends and family to other exchanges is exposing them to all kinds of BS. You will never see Swan encourage your friends or family to buy Dogecoin. Instead, Swan educates. Swan produces some of the best educational content in the space. That is a big freaking deal. The difference between somebody who buys on a whim and sells for a loss and those that hold for the long term is simply an education gap. We have been using Swan to dollar cost average into Bitcoin every single day since 2020. If you want a family member to turn into a Bitcoiner, there is no better place to go than Swan. For daily DCA, IRA, or education, Swan is the place to go. You can try Swan Premium on us for free. This includes exclusive Swan content, market insights, and other discounts. Click on our link in the show notes and use password BlueCollarBitcoin.
It needs to pass the wife or the significant other test. It needs to be something that you can put in the living room and not have your wife be like, what the fuck is this random Bitcoin toy?
I don't think there's any wives that would ever complain about another heater. They're always cold. I don't know about yours.
You're right.
My wife's always like cranking the heat up in the wintertime.
We got dudes at the firehouse that are cold though. Andy, he's always cold, dude. He's wearing a long sleeve in the heat of the summer.
He's crazy though.
Okay, in terms of chips,
my girlfriend was very happy using the old Heatbit one last winter. Each time she would come to it and turn it on, and it's warm. It gets warm, and then it's like, oh, it's also making money. Good.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, in terms of chips, I wanted to talk to you about your take on chip technology a little bit. You've indicated in the past that we might be reaching a little bit of a plateau, particularly in the Bitcoin ecosystem, of chip and miner efficiency. You're not saying there's a cap on it, but a bit of a plateau. Unpack that for us in terms of why you feel we're sort of there.
So let me put it this way: the chips become more efficient with the lithography, where the smallest parts within those chips get smaller and smaller. The smaller those are, the more transistors you could put on a square millimeter or square inch, the more efficient the chip is. And by now, the technology is in single nanometers. 1 nanometer is very, very, very small. When they print those chips on a wafer, there are things like the amplitude of the ray of light that does it starts to have an effect, right? It's that kind of precision. And right now, the technology that we're using, it's only applied in maybe 2 or maybe 3 places in the world. One is in Korea, one is in Taiwan, maybe one in the US. I saw some of the reports of the manufacturing with this tech in the US, but I'm not sure it's
I think they might be building, I think it's either Intel or AMD or NVIDIA. Might be building a plant here.
Yeah, TSMC was building something.
Oh, you're right. Yep, TSMC.
In Arizona, I think. Yeah. So basically, the every technology, it kind of first it improves very fast, and then it starts to hit some ceiling. It starts to plateau, and then you can still have some sort of incremental improvements, but they're going to be incremental. That happens with everything until the whole paradigm of the technology changes and it's completely new technology replacing it, and then you have that repeating. So that seems to what's happening with the chip technology now. So if you look at the mining, it had huge improvements in efficiencies over the past 10 years. You look at the lithography of the chips. They kept improving very fast, but now it improves slower, even though a lot more funding went into the industry. And the implication for the industry is that before, or well, in the last 10 years or so, the mining would compete on 2 different drivers, or 2 different factors. One would be the technology of the chips, how efficient your devices are, and 2 is cost of energy. Now, as the chips are plateauing in their efficiency, the cost of energy is going to be the main factor. And this is, coming back to the early discussion that we had. The cheapest energy is the energy that you already use, just like you said. So, and this is why I believe the solutions like ours, not necessarily ours, I'm sure we're going to have competitors, maybe someone will do better than us. The solutions like ours, when the mining goes back into home, and then mining and the either heat or cooling are used at the same time, this is where the cost of energy for the mining itself is zero. I think this is the kind of solution which will at some point start beating all the economies of scale of the large miners. And that's why I think the large miners in the long run will move to something else, let's say.
Yeah. Wow. Is there actually like do you know much about lithography? How much smaller can it actually get before we're talking about just atomic level, where it just can't get smaller before we have to have a different kind of technology? I know I've heard of 3 nanometer is possible. I know that's like the next generation, but that's probably a year or 2 out. I'm just wondering if you know anything more. Is there going to be? Are we talking about 1 nanometer? Is that possible?
Just before our call, I was reading about that. I didn't see anything on the possibility of 1 nanometer. I think, we should run this as a bit of a calculation. How how many atoms are there in 1 nanometer? I think it kind of gets to those kind of calculations.
Exactly.
It's
going to be really small.
Yeah.
I think this theme that you just unpacked there is new to me. And I didn't think about it in Bitcoin. Like the analogy that comes to mind that I just thought of is Bitcoin has become less and less of a niche fringe market. So we were basically, it was minor leagues. It started with you playing basketball in your front yard with your kids. Then it was your buddies in the neighborhood. Then it was junior high. Then it was high school. Then it was college. And we're kind of getting to the point where we're playing in the pros. Like the tech that's in these minors, we're in the fucking MLB. We're in the NBA. We're in the NFL. And so those athletes will continue to get better. You know, if we look at how good a sprinter is or an NFL running back or quarterback, in 15 years, they'll be better. But the pace at which that accelerates is going to be diminished because we're not ranking up in league over and over again. And
Yeah,
I do
exactly.
think
that's exactly the analogy. Yeah.
And I think in a lot of senses, tell me if this makes sense, but that is quite empowering to the home miner, because now what's built into, say, your product or whatever your competitors come up with is in a lot of ways shares the same architecture as the big dogs, right? You can bring the Major League Basketball player in your front yard, and obviously you're doing it at really diminutive scale, but you're using that level of talent or tech in the device in your own house. Is that sort of the way you see it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. Yeah, absolutely right.
As an aside, I just looked up how many atoms are in 1 nanometer. 100. So we're talking about only 100 atoms wide. That's fucking crazy small.
And I don't know how many atoms you need to keep the electric conductivity,
right.
But I guess you still need quite a few. So yeah, it's already hitting the limits there.
All right, let's close with this. You've made some statements about sort of a broader potential mission behind this product line and your company. You've said you're something about building a distributed computing network for the world. When you say that, are you talking specifically about Bitcoin? Are you going broader than that? What's the meaning behind a statement that significant?
I think we're going to go broader than that. We started with Bitcoin mining, and we're going to keep the Bitcoin mining in our product portfolio. At the same time, we also see other kind of computing where what we do starts to make sense. And we're coming from a little bit of the energy perspective to it, right? I started talking about the efficiencies and how what we do is making Bitcoin mining a lot more energy efficient. When I looked at the chart of growth of computing for AI models training, it's off the charts. Have a guess. I don't know if if I told you this before, but have a guess. What was the growth of AI computing over the last 70 years?
70 years?
7 years.
Oh, I was just going to guess in the last year, it's probably gone up an order of magnitude or more. I mean, OpenAI
magnitude means 10, right? So
yeah,
but 7 years. How many orders of magnitude?
Let's go with 5 orders of magnitude.
6. It's grown up. It's grown
Damn.
1 million times. Not million percent.
Wow.
1 million times it's grown. And so far, it's so you think, well, if it's grown so much, it must be using a lot of energy. Well, it does use a lot of energy, but so far the AI computations, the growth in AI computations was largely fed by the increase in hardware efficiency. Right, they're still on that curve, and that's why the leader in the chips for that, NVIDIA, has recently become $1 trillion company because they make some of the best tech. They charge well for it as well. But
imagine a world though. I'm just thinking about this. I think there's 2 kind of disparate ways this AI thing ends up going, which is like these centralized databases. And we're kind of talking about the same thing again with Bitcoin mining. Like we've got huge databases doing all the work and then, giving you permission to use it or to transact. And AI, which is the same thing, giving you permission, censoring the information and output from you. Or you could have what you're describing, which is, say you're energy consumption at home is contributing to the AI you're using, and therefore you have no constraints as far as like censorship or any of those other concerns that can come with having data centers doing all the work for you. So that's really interesting. And what?
Yeah.
Yes, and saving energy.
Saving the energy, right? The AI is going to be using huge amounts of energy especially once the technology starts to plateau.
Interesting.
Right. And this unlock is only possible with tip of the spear hardware in the home and really good connectivity. But as those things improve, yeah, you can envision home computing being across a lot of different arenas. I think what is so powerful and unique about Bitcoin's fit is it doesn't matter when it's on and when it's off.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, no matter what time of year, temperature is outside, you can start earning money with the click of a finger, and that there is no timing product mismatch whatsoever. And we've talked about it a lot on this show, but it is such a unique buyer of energy. And it is fascinating to see those energy implications be distilled all the way down to the individual, potentially in your own house. Instead of,
that's a really good point though, that you just made, because as far as Bitcoin doesn't care where the energy comes from, where the hashing comes from. But with AI, you'd almost need people sharing. You'd have to have like a giant crowd share thing where you're contributing to the AI, because you're not going to necessarily need the AI at whatever point you're producing it. So someone else could probably use it, you use theirs, and vice versa. It gets a little bit more complicated, but it's a cool idea. I was thinking you were going to go with something more like folding at home, where people have like scientific, there's universities that allow people's, if your computer's dormant, it can just run calculations for a university or whoever needs it. But yeah, really cool idea.
Yeah, or rendering for movies. It's one of my personal favorites is if our devices could render the next Oscar movie. That would be kind of fun.
Hell yeah. Alex, we appreciate your time, man. This was really interesting. Close this however you please, and tell our audience where to find you.
So yeah, our website, heatbit.com, very easy. If someone wants to find me specifically, you can just email me. It's alex@heatbit.com. That's not hard either. So very easy. There's few things that I wanted to mention that may be relevant. One is for anyone interested in what we do and actually wanted to buy one. Now is a good time, because we're going to be closing the pre-order discounts and gonna start charging the full season price quite soon. So I think getting it in August is probably the best deal, as it's also clear that the product is coming up well. And two, for anyone interested in not just getting our device, but being involved in what the company does, we actually plan to run a small funding round focused on our customers. It's going to be through WeFunder with a crowdfunding site. I'm sure you've heard of WeFunder.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a huge amount, and it's basically we're raising the money for two reasons. One is we're going to raise it at a seed valuation, whereas we're quite further than seed by now with over 1 million in sales. But we thought, well, especially with our early customers, and they've had to go through some difficulties with us, we thought, well, let's give something back, and this is one thing that we could give. Let's raise a small amount of money, but it's a smallish valuation, so that we kind of give back to our customers, involving them back into our company. And the money that is going to be used is actually going to be used to produce in larger quantities, driving down the price. So everyone kind of wins.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I wanted to mention. And feel free to reach out. We our Twitter is heatbit_com. That's another source of info about what we do. And yeah, gentlemen, just thanks a lot for your time.
Keep building. We'll start mining at home and keep the master bedrooms toasty through the winter, Josh.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.